I'm here with a good friend, Elder Darocha. Elder has been a friend for many years, and we've worked together in different projects. We've been doing Java user groups together, and Elder is like one of the original Java developers in Brazil. You know, in 1995, when Java was still alpha and beta version, Elder already had a full Java training created by himself to teach other people Java. So, you know, thanks a lot, Elders, for being here and coming here to talk a little bit of us. So, Elder, you are a Java developer, but you do much more than Java, right? We're going to talk about other things later, but you're a Java developer, but you like dive in all kinds of different technologies. I know you did all kinds of HTML, CSS, but you also did development of all different languages. So do you think it's important for a developer to kind of this like broad overview of technology and architecture and this kind of things, or I can just kind of stay together in like one language, that's enough?
Well, I think life is too short for you just to be a Java developer. Also, there's so many interesting things in the world. So if, I don't know, if anything, you might have a hobby, it may become very interesting. You want to know more about that. I think curiosity for our human culture is like hunger for one person. You need it. Society goes because of our curiosity. It continues to exist. Science and art, all that is more important than anything, like in 1,000 years. If you think back 1,000 years, you won't remember any Java programmer or any lawyer or any doctor, even though they're important today in the short term. But in the long term, you're going to remember Leonardo da Vinci, Dante Alighieri, Descartes. So that's in our long-term culture what's really interesting. And that's our curiosity. Of course, you need all those people in the back to Java exists because of them. And so programming is great. You can control machines. You can create the world today. It's like Isaac Newton used to say, where we build it on top, we discover new things. We're on top of the shoulders of the giants that came before us. So, and the world is there. The world is so interesting. There's so many interesting things to do. There's arts, there's science, there's, you look at the sky, you see the stars. You may be curious about that. It may be your hobby. But then you love the hobby so much, you start discovering more and more and more. And today you have the internet. So you start sharing that with other people. I think many of the arts that I did as hobbies, some of them became like a job sometimes because of the internet. Like when I started teaching HTML, I was learning Italian and I was reading the Divine Comedy. And I decided to make a small summary of each canto. And I ended up translating it. Nobody would ever know about that. It would be just a hobby if I hadn't put it on the web. And the web was very new at the time, so not many people were accessing that. And suddenly, lots of people had seen my translation of Dante, and I had to make a better one because, everybody's reading it. So I started researching more and more and more. I read several translations, and then I have today a translation, which you can see there. There's a website, which is
let me put here so people that are watching us can actually see this.
It was made in 2000, in 1999, and it's a translation of Dante's Divine Comedy in Portuguese. I translated it from Italian, and I also learned Italian at the time, and it took me 2 years. And it has the whole story. You can read it here online. You can even mark the page. It's kind of ugly now because this was never updated. Like here you have a bookmark, so you can go back and then click on the bookmark and continue. So I use my knowledge of JavaScript, of web technology, which I was teaching, but I also put my translation online.
So basically you started, you're mixing the work that you're doing with the hobbies that you're doing and actually transforming your hobbies in work.
Yeah, but then the web made it famous. It kind of, after this, I was contacted by a movie maker, which was writing a movie which was inspired in Dante, and he paid me, and I was a consultant in Dante for 2 days. It was also used by a group in Rio de Janeiro, which staged a play based on my translation.
Nice.
And 2 years ago, I went to Santiago de Compostela for an exhibit because I made some drawings at the time, some illustrations. And I also posted them here. For example, I drew some, I made a map of hell. I drew that. I didn't really, okay, a little drawing, but then this curator saw my drawings and they thought, hey, well, we like them. We would like to exhibit them here in Santiago. Is that okay? So it was there in a museum in Santiago de Compostela for 4 months. Nice. But I think much of that is because of the internet, because the internet gives you all that visibility.
Right. So a lot of developers, they kind of work on their code that they work on, and they're like afraid of giving talks or writing blogs or presenting what they're doing worldwide, like on open source project, for example. So a lot of people kind of is afraid of doing this. But you're showing that simply the fact that you put online. I mean, you're doing so cool stuff, but the fact that you're doing it online, it kind of broadcasts to the whole world and actually has results like many years after.
Yeah, my own all my work in technology started like that.
Right.
I started working with HTML, JavaScript, and then Java. In the beginning, I was working for this company, and I published a book in 1995 on HTML. And I was going to publish a second book on JavaScript, but then I had a discussion with the publisher, and I didn't publish it. At the time, I put it online. After I put it online, many people downloaded it. And they also downloaded my Java stuff. And then suddenly I discovered it was much better to give away everything than to even try to. I never published a book in Java, but I rewrote it several times. Many people downloaded it. Many people hired me for training. I made a lot of friends. So I think the internet's of course, that's free advertising. Today, advertising is not free anymore like in the beginning. In the beginning, people would find me in Google. I didn't pay anything, but then Google discovered, people are getting free advertising, so let's make it a little bit harder. So I was benefited, of course, with the beginning of the internet. But that also shows that it's great to share. I participate in Stack Overflow. I answer questions. I share my code in GitHub, and I was already paid to do small things and some bigger ones simply because people saw my code and, hey, this is nice. It was good to share. Could you do this for me? Or that, or this, and so there's so many possibilities. You don't have to stay. If you hide everything, nobody will discover you.
Right, and I think we have this very interesting story. Actually, the image that we're showing here right now, the imaginary pterosaur, this also started with with some curiosity on your side, but also started because you put things online.
Yeah, it's I've always.
First of all, explain to us a little bit what this is, and then we can.
Yeah, this is a blog where I publish all the stuff, everything I do related to paleontological research. I'm not a paleontologist. I started working with paleontology in 2012. And before that, I knew very little about it. But I am an artist. Since I was a kid, I used to make small maquettes of airplanes. I used to draw. So I'm not really a stranger with arts.
Right.
But then what happened is
you can't say that you're strangers to art, right? No. You have done plays, you have done sculptures, you have done all kinds of art. You just showing your drawings, so you're definitely not stranger to art.
Yeah. So this was actually something. I woke up one day and I actually a friend of mine, she wanted to make a bat for her kid.
A bat.
A bat. For it was a piñata. Those things that you fill with candy, you break it.
Right. Yeah.
So I had 3 days free, and I made one for her with paper mache.
Right.
And then and I gave it away, and the kid destroyed it, of course. And I thought, I made a very detailed bat. It was not a simple one. I researched the internet. I checked what anatomy of bats. I did everything. And I also checked the material because it had to be paper. It couldn't be metal or anything, because the kids could get
Yeah,
injured.
Was the kid scared by the bat?
Oh, the kid, she wanted a bat.
Okay,
Her
right.
mother's a heavy metal band player,
Okay.
and her kid wanted a bat piñata. Her mother didn't know what to do.
Right.
But then I said, oh, I can do it.
Yeah,
So
you couldn't find a bat piñata on the store, right?
Yeah, and I had some free days, so I made using paper mache, using foam. I also know some electronics, so I put some LEDs in the eyes. It got kind of spooky. Well, and I called it the ephemeral bat because I was going to make it, it was going to be destroyed.
Right.
And when her mother saw the bat, she said, "Oh no, we're not going to destroy this." Oh yes, you are. It's called the ephemeral bat. It was born to be destroyed. If it doesn't die, it's going to be very frustrated.
Right. Yes.
And the kid was crazy to destroy the bat. So they all destroyed the bat.
Right.
And the next day I was home with no bat. Right. I was kind of missing it. Okay, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up. I'm going to make one for me. But I woke up in the morning. I opened the newspaper, and there was this pterosaur that had been discovered in China. And I thought, oh, why not do something different, a pterosaur? But then, since I already had done it, because we learn a lot by trying.
Right.
And everything I do, I usually don't have any idea of how to do it. I started programming like that. I didn't have, okay, I'm going to program. Oh, how do I start? I had no idea. But I've always tried it. Usually, if you're except for some jobs like being a pilot or something, you can try and get it wrong and survive and continue and try it again.
Some jobs you might not survive. That's a
exactly.
Problem,
a pilot would not be possible.
Right.
But then, so I had no idea on how to make a pterosaur. I knew nothing about pterosaurs, and I got what I had at home. Like I had, those foam boxes from that you use. There's several of those, like those Big Mac boxes that made of that kind of foam.
Yeah. Like when you buy a TV, it comes.
Yeah, but not that thick, that soft one. It's a more dense one.
Right.
That it's used for food.
Okay.
Food packages. So I had some at home, and I thought, okay, I'm going to use this because it was light.
Right.
And I didn't know how to glue. I glued it, I sanded it, and I started messing up with it. I discovered I could press it, I could fold it. So I started discovering a technique in sculpture. And after the second day, I had a head. And after the head, I started, I'm going to cover with paper mache. I'm going to make the pterosaur like I did the bat. But no, I started researching on the internet, and I wanted to make it exactly the same as this one. So I started improving it and making it better. Actually, the best way to speak about this is showing it here. Because I have...
you have pictures of it?
Yes, I have a presentation which is better. Can you? Oh yes, you can see.
Yeah, we can see here. Yes.
Okay, this is a presentation I made at a paleontological conference.
Right. So you went from not knowing anything about pterosaurs to go eventually give a talk at
yes, I've been to several of them already.
Right.
And this is the first one I made.
Okay.
How I made it. I found this in the internet. This is a sideways, two-dimensional drawing of a skeleton that was found in China. And I thought, how do I make this? No idea. I cut out some pieces out of foam. And then I started gluing it together and seeing what was going to happen. I didn't know. I glued it. Okay. I had no idea where I was going to get. I cut out this piece here and glued it together. And I started molding it and sanding it. And suddenly it was looking like this. It still doesn't look at all like the pterosaur. It looks more like a pelican.
Right?
Yeah, it's more like a pelican. It's still very bad. But then I started checking the internet. I found bones. I wanted to make the rest. So this is an actual fossil. Then my challenge every day was to wake up and make several copies of of bones from real pterosaurs. So I started making copies. This is a foam copy I made. This is the real one. Sometimes I only have one side, so I had to guess. Right. But so I used to work with what I had. The same way in paleontology, you work with what you have. A person discovers a piece of a bone, then that's what I have. If I discover another part later, I'll fix it. But while I don't, I'll imagine it. So that's why I called it the imaginary pterosaur, because you have to imagine everything. And I went deep into this because I had the freedom to imagine. I'm not a paleontologist. I could get it wrong. I
Right.
don't care if people say I'm wrong because I'm not in the academy. I don't have a PhD in this, so I don't care. I'm just going to try it. So I tried it, and I started going very far. I started discovering techniques. I discovered how to make teeth. These teeth are from a plastic hanger. I put a candle under it and made this hanger. Then I started making the individual pieces one by one. I used to draw them and try them out. And after some so I didn't know how to make this in 3D. I call this a 3D sketch. I have the top view here, the side view, and an intermediate view. I have no idea what it looks like from here or here. So I guess. So I get the two views and put them together, and then start filling in the gaps until I had this. So it's like sketching and drawing, but in 3D.
Right.
And anything you do every day, you start getting better at it
Right.
after a while, even if you don't know what it is, because there was no science about this specific technique. But then something very interesting happened. When I started doing all this, I did everything in the internet. All the photos are in Creative Commons, everything using WordPress. And so Creative Commons, this pterosaur was in the newspaper because it had recently been discovered.
Right.
So a little bit later, the scientists wrote a Wikipedia article about it, and they wanted to illustrate it, and they found my replica, and they thought it was great, so they used it, and that suddenly pushed me into the academic area of paleontology, because then everybody knew my replica. People started contacting me. I exhibited this in. I also work with theater, and I was giving a theater workshop in João Pessoa, and so I was always traveling with it because my spare time I used to make a bone. I took 2 months making this.
Right.
But I used to fix it. I was in the hotel, so in the hotel I'll sand it a bit, then I'll go for my workshop, come back. So I was teaching, and these were my students, the theater students, and they helped me assemble it because I was making the individual bones separately.
Right. So it was like a really big project.
Yeah, but it was a hobby, actually. It wasn't really, I didn't really want to make anything sophisticated. But then it also appeared on this, I went to this art festival, I took it, and I put it there on the wall. And this band called Mustachos Apaches is a band here from São Paulo. They recorded a clip using the pterosaur.
Nice.
Another guy called Beto Brandt, he's a movie maker. He made a movie with this in the same scenery, and the pterosaur was there as well. So it became a superstar. Right? So all these things happened to it. And then I went to this art exhibition. A paleontologist saw it. He asked me, hey, don't you want to make some other ones? And he got me a bunch of paleontological material I never seen before, a bunch of articles and texts, and I was obsessed. Oh, why not improve it? So I improved it, but that was my starting one. So then I made this one using a scientific article that he gave it to me. I made this very quickly in 5 days. I was getting better at it.
Right.
So I made the teeth, everything. And then this is the process. I was at my mother's house. This looks a lot like the real one. And then I made another one, and this is how I make it. And the fourth one, and a fifth one. And this one, this fifth one is the one I discuss here in this event. And after this, I won a prize. I won a paleontological sculpture, first prize. I even got some money, and I was okay. So suddenly I knew in this event it was the first Brazilian Congress on pterosaurs. It was very specific.
Right.
So I got to know all the most famous scientists that work with pterosaurs. All of them know the ones that write the books. So they all know my art, and I had contact with that. I made some good contacts. So later I was hired, and I made a pterosaur for a museum in Brazil, which is another presentation here, this one here. So this one here was it's a description of the project. This is the final report, and it's full of technical terms already because I already got used to the technical terms. I had to also educate myself. I had to read a lot of books on vertebrate paleontology, so I could understand the terms about biology, geology, because I had to speak with these people, and they use this different language. I didn't understand anything.
Right.
Of course, it took me a while, but it was something I used to have fun doing.
Yep.
And of course, I wasn't making any money with this, so I had to do it in my spare time because I had to program and do other things as well. So this was all happening, but it was going. So this is the material I use.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the description of the sources I used. These are the actual fossils. This is how I do the scaling. I had to make some calculations, change the scales. I use different sources, so I had to put them in the same sizes. I use the computer for this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is how I construct the bones. My technique is already much better now. This was a year later. So these are the parts of the skeleton I made for this museum, and I have it here in
That's
GN.
a whole lot of bones. How many bones there is in one?
200 and something.
200 and something.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And there's some very. This is a smaller one, so some of these are very small. I discovered how to make them all hollow. This whole skeleton, it's like 2 meters wide, and it only weighs 300 grams. The other one I made it has 4 meters and a half of a wingspan of 4 meters and a half, and it only weighs 900 grams.
Okay.
So I discovered also that was the lightest replicas in the world. In the American Natural History Museum, there's one, the same species as the one I made, the same size. It weighs 20 times more than mine.
Okay.
So I could also try to sell it as using that as an advantage, because you can hang it on your museum with fishing lines without any metal anything. And if it falls on somebody, it won't kill that person. And probably the bones will fly in the wind. So you can pay less insurance as well. It's going to cost less.
Right.
I tried to use that argument with the Natural History Museum in London, but I wasn't successful yet. They were kind of skeptical about my technique.
All right. Okay.
But maybe after some time. So then I finally built this one. I can show you the final result here.
The final result.
It's here, upside down. And here it's in the final
at the museum
in
itself.
the museum. So
that's pretty cool.
These are several of them I made. And then I have one in Portugal now, a head. And there's some other projects, so I still plan to make some other ones.
Okay.
But it's kind of, it's not like Java, like a market. Everybody wants a pterosaur every day. Like people want one this year, maybe in 2 years they want another one. So it's a bit slower, but it's very fun.
That's pretty cool. All right, so basically, you got all this attention. It's really nice that you can see that you get from not knowing anything about the subject to get all this attention, even have something published in the museum, because you're doing things and because you're publishing everything you did from the start, right? Because if you hadn't published the photos to begin with, you wouldn't show it up on Wikipedia, and nothing of this would happen.
And the blog also has something else, because sometimes when you do something, even if you publish it, first you think, I didn't know anything about pterosaurs, but I thought it was this much I had to know. But the moment I start studying more and people read, hey, I don't understand a word you're saying. Hey, this is wrong. So you start having criticism.
Yeah.
Like the moment my blog became, when I was just publishing my hobby, nobody cared about it. But then suddenly, my pterosaur was there in Wikipedia, and I was doing some serious stuff. And then people, his replicas aren't very precise. That would hurt me a lot. Then I had to study more. Then I wanted to improve it. So it's good when you're in the community, because the community can help you improve your art a lot.
Right.
That's the same for code. If your code is in GitHub, somebody can use it and say, "Oh, this code's kind of bad." Then you feel terrible about that, right? So you're gonna fix it. Maybe somebody else knows better, can help you.
Right.
Like I had some project with some people, many paleontologists. They helped me. They criticize my stuff, my art. Oh, this is not the way it is. You should do it this way. Oh, use this book. I can show you this theory. Sometimes I had to deal with some. It was great when I got to the level that a paleontologist would say, "Hey, this is the way you should do it," and then the other one, "Hey, don't listen to that guy. This is not correct. He's wrong. This is the way you should do it." And then I had to decide.
Right.
So I was already at their level, because I could say, "Hey, I'm going to decide this one," and I could explain why I chose the theory A from the theory B, because this is theory. Everything is scientific theory. People don't have the whole skeleton.
Right. Okay, that's pretty cool. So we are totally out of time here, but one of the things that I want to touch on real quick is that we said we're going to talk a little bit about music, and really what we see is that when you're a developer, a lot of developers think that they're not doing a creative work. And actually, in fact, software development in general is a creative work because you have to take all those kind of little decisions every day on everything you have to do, and you are the one to take the decision like you're doing, right? So it's a very creative work. Now, a lot of times, developers have this either as a hobby or second work or something. Things like some kind of art, especially music, right? Patrick Kuhan from the
Or visual.
JCP, he says that, for example, when he became his career, he would hire developers. There's not many developers when he started, so he would hire musicians and teach them software development because it was easier to teach software development for musicians than So, and you are also a musician then, right? You played all kinds of different instruments.
Yeah, actually, I was trained as when I was 9. I studied piano at the conservatory.
Right.
So I learned piano,
Mm-hmm.
but I used I love. It's the same thing. Like for me, it's the same. Like
Right. Yeah.
I went to Russia, and I bought this instrument here.
Yes.
It's a bayan,
Yeah. Can you?
and it's
How about if we move this a little
yeah.
bit so people can actually see? Well, no.
and,
that's
and
right.
all the manual is in
Can I just
Russian.
close this here?
Yes, you can close it.
Okay, I'm just going to close this.
And the manual was in Russian, and I couldn't really understand much of it at the time. Today, I can understand Russian a bit more. So I had to discover how do I play this.